Well, I'm here with Greg and Bernadette, and we just started recording. And what we're talking about is trying to make sure that Bernadette and Greg have a business model that makes some money, that they have some skills, you know, that apply to it, that they're passionate about, that their head is in alignment with that. In other words, they've done the analysis and it looks okay, and their instincts say this is probably a good thing to do. So that's kind of usually where I start. And so before we started recording the session, that's what we talked about briefly. So I'd like to hear from you first, Bernadette, because I know Greg obviously better. What do you want to do?
Well, I'd like to have an income that essentially replaces mine.
Where are you working now?
I work at a mental health clinic as a counselor.
Okay.
I love that work, but I'd like to be able to do less of it, or to do a different form of it in a different location, which would mean probably that I would need to not necessarily have to depend on that so much.
When you say a different form of it, what does that mean?
Well, I work for a health authority, so I'm constricted a lot by what they direct us is therapy that is completely evidence-based, but it also it cuts out a lot of newer therapies that work well for people that they don't think has enough evidence yet. So, I'd like to be able to do that sort of on my own and, make it what I want it to be.
Yeah, so tell me about some of these, quote unquote, non-evidence-based therapies.
Well, there's one called EFT, which is emotional freedom technique. Basically, it's tapping. There is actually a lot of evidence for it now, but it's not officially recognized by our health authority. I'm not certified in it, but I do use it a lot. So I would like to get certified in it and then use it more on my own.
What is it?
Oh, well, it's basically a therapy where, to describe it, it's based on a lot of physiology and Eastern medicine and things like that is how it developed. But the theory behind it is your tapping actually looks weird. You tap on all these different endpoints, meridians, basically, while you're focusing on an issue, a problem, a feeling, a situation that causes a lot of distress in you. And so you focus on that, various aspects of that while you're tapping on these endpoints. And the theory behind it is that it's sending neutralizing impulses into your nervous system while you're focusing on the distressing event. And so it sort of takes the negative charge out of the event. And it works amazingly.
So let me tell you something my oldest daughter and my wife taught me last week. I used to have a bad temper. I'm too old now to have a bad temper, but every once in a while I can still lose my temper, and that's a bad thing at my age. That is a terrible idea. I mean, it's a bad idea anyway. But what they told me to do is, to do one of two things. If you're about to lose your temper, they said just stop and take 3 breaths. You don't have to say anything. Just in a meeting, you could just go.
Mm-hmm.
Now that looks a little obvious. So what they told me to do was under the table, you could just rub your thumb and your finger together like that, just to remind yourself. And obviously I could do that now if I was getting mad at you, Bernie. You couldn't see me do it. And you got to have a little sense of humor. Life is tough right now for a lot of people. Imagine 8 million people unemployed in Canada and 40 million of our American cousins unemployed. I mean, it's really bad. But the reason I ask you that is I should show you, see if I can find it. I should show you just, Greg, our first session is not, we're not just going to run into something and then we find out that we've gone down the wrong path. Okay, so this is a bit of an exploration. Is that okay with you, Greg?
Exactly what I told Bernie would be last night. Yep.
Okay, because Bernie, a lot of the stuff that I teach is very, very, very focused on how do you get this thing financed, how do you get it closed, how do you animate it, how do you improve your revenues? I mean, how do you market it, how do you get sales done? I mean, all of that is going to come through this coaching. But like I said, if we've got something that you really don't like doing, and you're not passionate about it, and you don't really have the skills for it, what's the point? Right, so I do want to just understand a little bit more about you guys. So hang on a second, see if I can find this thing. This might be interesting to you because it might be relevant if I could find it. Here it is, I think. I think you'll get a kick out of this. Yeah, I wonder if I have that in here too. Oh yeah, I do. Okay, good. Let me just show you something I did for a neighbor of mine. All right. And just when you were talking to me about how passionate you are about alternative therapies, you're not alone. So this is a case study of a neighbor of mine. And I'll just show you the pictures. I think that's probably the best story. Greg, I don't know if you remember this from the Pivot course. I don't know if I did it in Pivot or not, but so this is a neighbor of mine. He lives like literally 2 doors away, and he asked me to come and visit with him, Bernie, because you know, he was going through some very stressful times. His wife and with his 2 kids had left, so he was on his own, living with his mom. His wife and his 2 children had separated out from him, and then his mom passed. So he's living in this house 2 doors over from me. No wife, no children, no mother, and he's a tech guy, but he's, you know, tech guys when they're in their, by the time they're in their mid-40s are considered old. And so, you know, his employer was, you know, hoping to, you know, get him out, you know, get rid of him. I mean, you know, apparently at 40, you're old in tech, and in China, apparently you're old at 30. So at 45 or so, you know, he was really in some difficulties. So I went over, this was a few summers ago, and I said to him, it's the same sort of stuff that I just talked to you guys about. So what are you passionate about? And it turned out he was passionate about energy healing, if you know what that is.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I'm sitting there on this beautiful deck of his under this wonderful tree canopy of white pines. On a perfect summer day, and I'm looking at this pool that you can see on the screen here. I'm looking at Jason, that's not his real name, I'll just call him Jason. Looking at Jason and thinking, I think I might know what you could do. His solution, Bernadette, was that he was going to sell this house. It's worth about $650,000 and it has no mortgage on it. He was going to sell the house. And then I said to him, Jason, well, okay, you sell the house. What are you going to do with the money? He said, well, I guess I'll eat it. You know, it'll support me for a few years. And then I said, well, instead of being 45, you'll be 55 and you'll have no money. So what's your plan? He said, well, that's my plan. I said, well, that is a really bad plan.
I can even see that.
What did you say?
Is that I can even see that's a bad plan.
Oh, no, that's a terrible plan. And so I said, I think I have a better plan. He said, well, let me know. I said, what if you were to take that pool out? You know, pools, swimming pools, at least in my opinion, are just energy suckers and chemical pits, you know, and really not very useful. And they're dangerous. You know, if a little kid wanders in, you know, they could get hurt. So I said, what if you were to pull that thing out and do something different? You know, here's the closer view of the pool. This is Jason on his back deck. Look at the size of that deck.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's beautiful. And here's the tree canopy. I just took the pictures, you know, just with my little iPhone. So I said to him, I am coaching somebody in Portugal. Like when you do Zoom coaching, Bernadette, you can coach people in Calgary even. Or Portugal. And I said, why don't you pull that pool out and put a yurt or do you know what glamping is?
Yep.
Yeah, glamorous camping. Put a, you know, like a beautiful backyard. And I said, what we're doing in Porto, which is a city, an industrial city in the north of Portugal, but it has a big tourist infiltration every year, is doing something called urban glamping. He said, what the hell is that? And I told him what it is. And I said, you know, people will pay $265 a night to sleep in, it's a nice tent, mind you, but it's just a tent. And so pull that pool out, put in maybe, you know, a hot tub, or, you know, put in a barrel sauna, and you could put in a backyard glamping tent like this, and you could make about $50,000 a year renting it out. Because not everybody who comes to Ottawa or Calgary, or for that matter, Porto in Portugal, wants to stay in a hotel. I personally hate hotels. I'd rather stay in a glamping tent, just me personally. So he said, wow, that'd be awesome. And I said, what's really cool about it is, you know, you can also practice energy healing. They can come and they can stay in your backyard yurt. They can have a great experience, but they can also, if they need some help with energy healing, you can help them with that. And then I showed him, oh, here, I didn't know I had these in here, but here's the urban glamping that we're, a site that we're doing in Portugal. So this is a middle-aged lady in Porto who has, she now has actually three glamping tents, one in her side yard and two in her backyard that she leases out. And Portugal has better weather than Canada does, by the way. So anyway, and then it turns out that one of my former students, I used to teach architecture, one of my former students, her name is Anissa Zato, is manufacturing, instead of these glamping tents that I showed you, she's manufacturing yurts. Do you know what a yurt is? Yeah, she's manufacturing these yurts out of Pickering. She's a brilliant young woman. And they're insulated and they're good down to -40. So I said to Jason, don't put in a glamping tent, put in a backyard yurt. And he laughed. He said, this is awesome. And you can see they can be quite big. And, you know, they could come fully equipped. This particular yurt that Anissa developed has obviously the yurt here. And then this is a full bathroom, including a shower. And look at the inside of these things. They're beautiful. And they have these beautiful plexiglass bubbles at the top. So when it's hot, you can open them up and the air rises. But in the middle of winter or the middle of summer, you can lie on your back and you can see the stars move. And it's really beautiful. And we bought two of them, myself and my wife, we bought two of them last year for one of our properties, by the way. And you can see they're good down to -40. They're insulated and they come with wood stoves. Now, the ones that we bought, we don't trust our clients with wood stoves. We put in propane stoves, you know, because, you know, people could hurt themselves that, but they're good year round. And so that's enough of this. So what happened was he's now got his little backyard yurta. And he made last year he made about $65,000 and about another $15,000 of earnings from his energy healing practice. So he was about $70,000 or $80,000 last year, which is better than it was a couple of years ago. This year it's way down because of COVID-19, but nevertheless it's a fantastic thing to consider. And so one of the things that I think I saw in Greg's notes to me, one of the things that he was interested in was, I think, an RV park or a trailer park or something, or mobile home park. But maybe you could combine something like that, if that's the direction you decide to go in, with, you know, your interest, Bernadette. Are there any other sort of techniques that you're looking at other than EFT?
Not specifically. I've been doing some work with, well, I guess I've done body talk stuff, not done it myself, but I've had it done, and that's something that kind of interests me. I'm not sure if that can be done remotely or not, really. But I like all kinds of counseling things can be done. You know,
so I really love the idea actually of combining, you know, what you do in counseling with something like a business model. I think it would be a wonderful outlet for your creativity and also a way to, to differentiate whatever you do from the competition.
Oh, and I guess the other thing that I'm kind of dabbling, well, playing around in is just doing more writing. And I've thought in the past of maybe doing writing workshops and things like that.
Are you a good writer?
I think I'm an okay writer. If I were to discipline myself more to do it more, I probably would be a good writer again.
You want to know what my PhD supervisor said to me a long time ago?
What's that?
He said, Bruce, the first 1,000,000 words are the toughest.
Right. Like the 10,000 hours thing.
Oh, it's a lot more than 10,000 hours. I love writing. I mean, Greg knows I asked my wife, I only have one addiction. It's not the drugs or alcohol, it's the writing. So let me show you one other case study and then we'll move on. This is a case study, Bernadette and Greg, of an Indigenous person that I know, and he's in his 80s now. And last year, or 2 years ago now, I guess, I went out and helped him build a sweat lodge. Do you know what a sweat lodge is? Yeah. Greg, do you know what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah, so these are just pictures. So this is an Indigenous person. He's very famous. I won't mention his name. Who has fallen on hard times in his elder years. He's in his 80s. And so myself and some young people went out onto this property that actually I sold him a long time ago now to help him build a new sweat lodge. And so you can see what he's done here. It's just, it's very primitive, but it works. I've been inside the sweat lodge. It's got a place to heat rocks, and then you bring them inside, you cover it up, and, you're inside. And if you know something about sweat lodge training, there's some prayers and there's some drumming, and then you smoke some tobacco and it's quite and you stay in there as long as you can to sort of sweat out all the poisons in your body. There's just another picture of the lodge. Here's some of the rocks that we heat. We use igneous rocks, so you can heat them up really, really hot and they don't explode. You can't use limestone or something like that because they've got water content in it. Once you heat them up, they explode and they can kill you. So that's a bad idea. It's right next to a pond. This is a pond. I actually dug this pond for him years ago. And so he told me that this is, something he has been doing since he's been in his 40s. And he's been training, lots of folks on the lore, which is probably 30,000 years old, the lore of sweat lodge and sweat lodge training. And so I said to him, well, you're struggling financially. Why don't you charge people for it? And he said, no, I can't do that, Bruce. According to the lore, the 30,000 years of training for Indigenous people, it has to be free. Oh, I said, white people don't necessarily think like that, but Indigenous people do. And you have to respect that. So I thought about it for a few minutes and I said to him, what if we put 8 yurts around this pond and you charge people to stay in your yurts and you gave them free sweat lodge training? He said, I could do that. So Bernie, I'm going to ask you, what do you think he made last year from his 8 yurtas? He bought the same yurts that I bought from Anissa. He has 8 of them.
100,000.
That's a good guess. I think I would have probably guessed about the same thing. He grossed a little over 300,000 last year.
Wow.
Because what he liked about Anissa's yurts is that you can he's invited me to do sweat lodge training in February, but I have so far declined. But other people do, and so at Christmas time he's busy. New Year's Eve he's busy. February 14th he's especially busy, so he runs this now. He has a young white person who actually helps him. This young white person is training in this. The training is not just for Indigenous people; it can be everyone. And because he couldn't manage this on his own, but between my friend here and his young apprentice, Paul, they grossed over 300,000. They netted about 200,000. Paul made 90,000, and my buddy there made just over 110 last year. So, you know, it's been a really good model. So there are more business models in real estate than most people know. And so one of the things I'd ask you to do, Bernadette, is to think about, you know, this that we've just gone through in a very superficial, really, but think about that and maybe finding something that is both, you know, financially rewarding and also fulfilling. All right, so I want you to think about that. The other thing too that I would point out is, and this is important to you, Greg, is that your wife, Bernadette, doesn't have to do all the work. Really. We have, you know, 2 of these yurts on one of our properties. It's a 177-acre property on a beautiful lake, a second best fishing lake in Ontario, and we bought 2 of these. And so they cost about $21,000 to buy, you know, the yurt from Anissa, Zato, and Pickering. And then you have to build a deck, and then you have to furnish them. So our cost was about $40,000 for each yurt, with the deck, with the yurt assembled, and with the furniture, you know, including the fireplace, the propane fireplace, not the wood burning fireplace. So we spent about $40,000 on them, and we put them on Airbnb last year and VRBO, vacation rental by owner, and we did about $21,000 or $22,000 in revenues per year last year. So, you know, it'd be like the 3 of us buying a you know, $400,000 house and renting it for $210,000 a year.
Right.
Do you understand the economics, Bernie?
Yeah.
That's pretty good. You know,
Yeah.
if you find any houses in Calgary you could buy for $400,000 and rent for $210,000 a year, that would be really awesome.
Yeah.
And by the way, houses like that do exist. Can you imagine where they are, Greg?
I would guess California.
That would be a good guess. One of my friends owns a house about 3 blocks from Wimbledon, where Wimbledon is played.
Oh yeah.
And he rents his house out, I'm not kidding, for £160,000 for a 3-week period, 3.5-week period every year, because people like Federer and Nadal and Venus and her sister, you know, they don't want to be in a hotel. They want to be close. They want to be able to walk to the stadium. So he gets £160,000 for 3.5 weeks, you know. So if you happen to own a house close to Wimbledon, you probably can get really ridiculous rents. But from the point of view of people like Nadal and you know, Venus and Serena, £160,000 is like us buying a cup of coffee. But unless you have one of these very, very, very fortuitous locations, and there's no such thing. So that's a pretty good return. And then this year, because of COVID, we pivoted away from Airbnb and VRBO because there was, at least for months, it was 0 interest. And what we did was we rented them out for the season to one family. You follow what I'm saying? So instead of having somebody come and you know, stay for 3 days or a week, we had it rented out actually for the whole year, because they are winterized, so to speak. And so this year we're on track to make about $13,000 or $14,000. So down considerably from the 21 or 22,000 we made last year, but not 0, because we rented them out. It's like your own cottage, you know, for $1,200 a month, and it's a 1-year lease. So it's about $14,000 we get for these, and it's on a beautiful lake, and you can go fishing. And you know, if you're a young man, a young woman, you know, and it's your home away from home, and people just seem to like it. So we were able to sort of still do reasonably well. And Greg, you know what cap rates are, right?
Yep.
So let's do a cap rate calculation. Ready?
Sure.
Got your calculator there? Bernie, do you know what a cap rate is?
No.
It's a capitalization rate, and your husband is an expert. I'll show you. We just call him Mr. 100%er from now on.
100%.
So we'll do first the cap rate, hopefully if we get out of the pandemic. So the cap rate, and we bought the thing for $21,000. We built the deck for $14,000 and we furnished it for $5,000. Total cost $40,000, right, Greg?
Yeah.
And last year we had gross operating income of 21,000, maybe 22, but we'll go with 21,000. But Bernadette, out of that gross operating income of 21,000, about 34% goes out the window for all of your costs. You know, your marketing costs, your cleaning costs, your insurance costs. I mean, you name it, your administration, your property management. So our net operating income is probably 21,000 times 0.66. So multiply 21,000 by 0.66, Greg.
13,860.
That sounds about right. And divide that by 40,000.
Uh, 0.3465.
So the return on investment, Bernadette, from that thing last year was about 34%. Okay? So if you took that same $40,000, Bernadette, and you put it in your bank, what do you think the bank would give you in interest?
Oh, I don't know, a few percent, maybe.
Maybe 1 or 2%? Let's be generous and say they give you 2%, which I don't think they would give you today because interest rates are down, but let's assume it's 2%. So you put your $40,000 into the bank and you get $800 a year, or you put it into one of these yurtas, they're called yurtas, and you get, how much was that, Greg, our net operating income?
13,860.
Yeah, so Bernadette, skill testing question, what's better, $13,860 or $800?
I'd go with the 13.
All right, and you sure you don't want the, the lifeline?
No.
You need to call somebody to check on that? But
Yeah, that's 13.
yeah, the cat goes with us on this. So and obviously this year it's going to be lower, but so our cap rate this year, Greg, let's say we made 14,000, but our costs were much lower because we don't have to clean it every week or every few days. We don't have as much property management involved because it's not on Airbnb. It's, you do one lease and that's it. So let's assume that, say, instead of 34% going out the window for OPEX, operating expenses, let's assume it's like 20%. So take the 14,000, multiply it by, say, 0.8 and divide it by 40,000.
0.28.
Yeah, so again, it's not as high a return, Bernadette, but still 28% is a heck of a lot better than you would get from the bank. And it, I mean, Greg knows this, and I'm sure you do too. If you're getting a 2% return on your savings, it takes a long time to save for your retirement. I mean, basically forever. 2% just won't get you there. I know because I'm 68. But if you can make 28% on your money, and you project that out over a few years versus the 2% down here, you'll get there much faster. So, you and I, Bernadette, are probably a little bit other directed. I coach, I make a little bit of money at it, but I do it because I really love doing it, but I also make a little bit of money at it, right? And so it's okay to combine those two things, your desire to be a counselor and also your desire to actually have a life, So combine the two, I think, makes sense. But one of the things I said a few minutes ago is that Bernadette doesn't have to do all the work. Why is that? Here's another model that we worked on. And so if you do something with this model, I want you to understand it in its full, the whole enchilada, the whole thing. So one of the things we would have done this year, except for COVID-19, is we would have bought a bunch more of these yurts from Ms. Zato. And what we would have done is we would have leased out some of them to people who want to run a registered massage therapy practice out of it. Somebody who wants to run a yoga practice out of it. Somebody who wants to run a physiotherapy practice out of it. I don't know, there's somebody who wants to do, I don't know, massage and nails and facials. You know, who knows what it is, because we have 177 acres on Constant Lake, and we have a lot of visitors. So imagine if you had, you know, one of these yurts, and, you know, Bernadette, you're using it for, you know, your EFT training. But the times that you're not using it, why couldn't somebody who does RMT work, or somebody who does, you know, energy healing, or somebody who does, you know, whatever, why couldn't somebody else use it? And so we have a model that we'll implement when the pandemic is over, hopefully in another year, maybe two. So there's a lot you can do with this, all right? So I need you to think it through, but don't do anything because your coach here is telling you it's an interesting model. Do it because you want to do it.
Right.
Okay. All right, so so Greg, of all the different models that you and I have talked about for what you're doing, which one is kind of leading the parade today in your mind?
Business-wise, I still lean towards the contractor storage.
Fabulous.
It doesn't, I mean, I think it fits very nicely with what I've been doing for the last 6 years with my storage business.
I agree.
And I can do all of my, you know, I'm a sociologist and health researcher by training, so I can do all of that kind of stuff on the side as I'm doing now. But it fits nicely with that. The reason I added in the RV storage and the
It goes with it anyway.
They can go with it, but also I'm having a difficult time right now trying to find any kind of properties to start from with the contractor storage yard. So I thought, well, maybe these other ones could be a starting point as well.
Well, we'll talk about that, but Bernadette, do you know the mini contractor yards model? Did you see the training that Chris Long did during the pivot course?
Did you watch that one?
No, I think I showed it to you before, though. But
That's the guy that did the, you described that one to me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So let me show you, I'll do it very quickly, Greg, but let me show Bernadette that model. So Bernie, this is Chris Long and his daughter Lily, and he was a guest lecturer in the pivot course that just completed. And in fact, Greg, we're not fully finished, right? We're doing one more lecture, bonus lecture this week with Erica Godwin on Thursday. So I'll send out a reminder as soon as I get a minute. But this model, Bernadette, is the only business model, maybe one of the very few anyway, that I know that it is a 4-hour workday. You know, I mean, I don't know how many hours a day you work, Greg, and you work, Bernadette, but I bet you it's quite a few. And you know, I'm a coach. I don't know. I don't want to tell you how many hours I work a day. I love what I do, but I'm working a lot of hours. But the mini contractor yards business is the only, or one of the very few, where you can have truly have a 4-hour workday. So this is Chris and Lily, and this was the very first yard that Chris did. I coach Chris. He's been a single dad since he was a teenager, and he's brought up this beautiful young girl here, Lily, and he's done a great job with her. His last name is Long, so he calls it Longyards. And Greg, one of the things that you might consider doing is you might consider talking to Chris about using, if you decide to do something like this, about using that brand. It's a very strong brand, and he is just, his business has just blown up on him, okay?
yeah, Chris and I spoke about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I think I knew that, and he is just salt of the earth. And Bernadette, this young man came from a very, very, very difficult background. He had to, I mean, he had to leave home at a very early age. It was a very difficult home environment. Obviously became a single dad when he was 19. He had to get some training, became a licensed carpenter. You know, I have a lot of respect for Chris. So the original model comes from Arizona, Bernadette. This was a man I coach in Phoenix, and his name is Kyle Powell. And you can sort of see here what it is. It's basically, it looks kind of like a racetrack. Can you see that on the screen, Bernie? And all of these are mini contractor yards. So if you're an HVAC, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning installer, you're a plumber, a surveyor, you know, any kind of a contractor, you know, you want to have your own yard. And this is what Kyle does. And you can see this is in Arizona. In Arizona, the security requirements are much higher. The United States is a very violent place compared to Canada. So he has a full block wall around this thing. He has cameras everywhere. He has barbed wire everywhere. In Canada, it's not quite as difficult. And then here we are inside the contractor yards. You can see they're big gates and they're screened because, you know, again, in the United States and in Canada too, but more in the United States, you could have stainless steel pipe there. People will come in with a friggin' loader and mow down your gate and steal your stuff, and they'll come with guns. I mean, it is really kind of the Wild West. But anyway, it's a very successful business. He has 24-hour video surveillance, 8-foot block wall. The gates are, most of the gates today are 24 feet wide, so you can get the very biggest loaders, dozers, you know, trucks in there. Notice here, Greg, he gets away in Arizona with 2 inches of gravel.
Yeah.
You know, in Calgary, in Alberta, and in Ontario, I don't know about Alberta, but in Ontario, it's more like 16 inches.
Yeah.
You know, because we have winter, obviously, and we have clay, and it's just a whole different ball game. And some of the other things that we introduced into the model is that in addition to just getting your contractor yard, you can rent a C-can from the owner or the operator. Obviously, you can park equipment there. Something that we just started doing this year is, and I think you remember this from the presentation we did during the class, Greg, is we buy these little mini offices. I'm sure you could build them. These little mini offices from Ferris. It's another company I coach in Kingston, Ontario. And so, Bernie, you can have your C-can there. You can have a little mini office there. You can obviously have your parking there. And these little mini offices that Ferris builds, they're so small they don't even need a building permit for them.
Oh.
And this is just a picture of Chris's contractor yard. So signage is very important. You know, signage works for you 24/7, 365. And this is the property, Greg, that Chris bought. You remember this?
Yeah.
And Bernadette, this is, it's 10 acres, about 9.5 or 10 acres of heavy industrial land that Chris bought for $470,000. To finance it, we got, I can't remember whether it was an 85 or 90% seller take-back mortgage. Bernadette, you know what a seller take-back mortgage is?
No.
Well, Greg, you know what it is.
Yeah. That's when the seller provides the mortgage and you just make monthly payments to them on that amount.
Oh, okay.
They're the bank for you.
Okay.
So if Chris had gone to a bank and said, hey, you know, my name's Chris Long. I'm a young carpenter. I make $18 an hour. Would you lend me $470,000? What do you think the bank would say?
Yeah.
To buy this. Okay. You know, Canadian banks are famous for only lending money to people who don't need it.
Yeah.
Okay. So if he hadn't had I think it might have been a 90% seller take-back mortgage, forget it. He'd never have bought it. So this is what the house looked like on the property. Here's another shot of it. So this is what the property looked like. It's got 10 acres of heavy industrial land, and this is the house that was on it. And when I went to look at it with Chris, I said, Chris, you should never, ever, ever take this house down. He said, oh my God, this house is a mess. I said, yes, it is. The whole site is a mess. That's good news, not bad news. I said, you can buy this thing and renovate that house, because if you tear a house down, Bernadette, on heavy industrial land, at least in Ottawa, you will never get permission from the city to rebuild it. And having a house on a property adds tremendous value in many ways, including maybe having somebody live on site to provide extra security. Okay, so this is what it looked like. And Greg, what you're looking for is something like this, where DOM, remember DOM stands for?
Days on market.
Yeah, where this one, I don't remember whether the days on market were 200 days, 300 days, or 400 days, but it had been on the market forever. Because, I mean, Bernadette, if you had shown this to any of your friends, they would say, you and Greg need to have psychological help. You're going to buy this piece of crap? But let me show you what it looks like today. So this is the house today.
Oh.
So it has a 2-bedroom apartment upstairs, a 2-bedroom apartment downstairs, and the garage has been converted to an office. All of them have been rented. This is the entrance to the basement that Chris put in. This is the entrance to the upstairs apartment. Here's Chris in what is the garage. Now it's an office. You can see it's got, because it's a garage, it's got lots of ceiling height, so it's a really cool little office. This is Lily holding up Chris's new business card for Longyards. This is Chris getting ready to open the yards. This was the day that I went there. This was the grand opening. All of these yards, he hadn't put the gates in yet. You can see the gates are here, Bernadette. And he hadn't put the screening in. You do need to screen them. Even in Canada, you want to make sure that, you know, the busybodies aren't seeing all the nice stuff that somebody has inside their yard. There's just another picture of this. This is the full development. So just to give you the idea behind it, Bernadette, Chris bought this for $470,000. Most of that financed by the seller, who was desperate to unload it. These were overseas people, I think originally from Syria, I believe. And, you know, if you live in Syria, that is a really, I mean, as tough as it is right now in Canada, the United States, it's much harder to live there. So they needed some money. So they were kind of desperate to unload this, I think. So this is the full development plan. It'll have 50 or 60, maybe 70 mini contractor yards. It's got the house fully rented, three leases there, Bernadette. It has just, the demand has exploded on Chris, and he's now negotiating with, maybe with you, Greg, but at least 6 or 7 others to brand and license the Longyards brand, which I think would be very good for certain people that I coach. And so he bought it for $470,000. After a year of operation, it was valued at $1.175 million. So it didn't triple in value, but it more than doubled in value. And when he finishes this whole site, phase 3, we think it'll be worth about $3 million. And this is just one site. And what I'm hoping is that, you know, if Greg, you and Bernadette decide to do something like this, that you know, you would own 1 or 2 or 10, you know, because this is a wonderful business. It's not very complicated to run. Kyle Powell, who started this mini contractor industry, it's not my idea. I wish I could claim it was mine. It is not. You know, he has 120 yards, I think now. He clears, after paying everything, you know, all of his costs, he clears about $42,000 US a month, works 4 hours a day. You know, in Phoenix, they view their summers like we view our winters. It's very unpleasant to be in Phoenix in the summertime. It's 135 degrees Fahrenheit. So he closes down. I mean, obviously the business continues, but he leaves in June and does not come back until Labor Day. He goes to Minnesota, where he likes to hunt and fish. And Minnesota summers are much better than Arizona summers. So he you know, so if you can get away from Arizona in the summertime, you would take that opportunity, and he does. So he has a 4-hour work day. Not a 4-hour work week, but a 4-hour work day, 5 days a week. And, you know, he knows all of his clients by name, and you know, makes about $42,000. And I asked Kyle, are you going to expand this across the United States and Canada? It's such a good idea. You should. And he said, absolutely not. He's younger than me, but not much. And he said, I've been a screw up all my life. Everything I've ever tried, I kind of failed at, and now I've got a business that makes me a very nice income. I don't have to work too hard. I have my summers off. He said, I'm not interested in expanding it. So he gave me permission to, you know, expose other people like you guys and Chris Long and others to the model, as long as you don't go to Phoenix.
Right.
All right, so that's it. So you kind of get a sense of what's possible with this model. I know Greg knows it pretty well. What do you think of it, Bernadette?
Yeah, it looks really good. You know, Greg had filled me in on a lot of that. So yeah, I mean, it looks really awesome.
Okay. So a couple of little tweaks that we're making to the model, and I wonder if I have it here. I'll show you, Greg. This is brand new, and again, I wish I could claim it as my idea, but this is very relevant, I think, to your existing business. You know, can you remind me again what you call your container business?
Quick store.
Yeah, Quick Storage or Quick Store.
Yeah, quick
Yeah.
store.
Yeah. So did Greg tell you that we bought 4 containers from the wrong people?
No.
So you know, I have a little storage building. It's only about 3,000 or 4,000 square feet, and I wanted to put some of these containers in. So we bought, not putting 2 in. It's all on me. We bought 4 of these. Can you see these, Bernie?
Mhm.
We bought them from CoverTech in New Brunswick, and Greg knows they came to us with some significant damage to them. And Greg said, well, you could have bought them from me. So the next 4, Greg, we're buying from Qucik Stor. Trust me, not CoverTech. But I really apologize, Greg. I missed that.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
But so I had Eric Brisson and Dan Dore, 2 very, very successful developers. They build multi-residential buildings, you know, 3-story, 5-story, 8-story buildings. So they don't like the 30-story stuff. They like the, you know, the sort of like 3 to 6-story stuff.
Okay.
So they came out to visit me. It was just a social meeting last Friday, and I showed Eric these containers, and he said, "Wow, I love these containers." I said, "Yeah, I do too. It's great for storage." He said, "No, you're not following me, Bruce. I have a new use for them." And wait till you hear what he's going to do, Greg. This is something that I think will be a new marketing channel for you. So this is Eric Brisson. He runs a company called Oligo, and he builds these beautiful, you know, 3, 5, 6-story buildings. I don't know if you can see them on the screen here, but really nice stuff. His apartments are typically 2-bedroom, and they're really, really well done. But what he told me is that what he's finding is he has in his underground parking garages under these buildings, he has a lot of empty parking spaces now.
Yep.
As people get older, Bernadette, they're not driving as much. So like my wife and I, we used to have, 2 cars, you know, van for 5 kids, a nanny and a mother-in-law, and me and her. And, you know, and then I had my own vehicle, but now we only have 1 car. And if I own some other property, and if I were to take you to one of the multi-res buildings where I own some units, I take you into the parking garage. 20 years ago, every single spot in that parking garage would be absolutely full. Today, half of them are empty. And the price for underground parking in this particular building that I'm talking about, you know, was, you know, $125 a month, $135 a month. Today, it's $35 a month. What does that tell you? So
Losing money.
I beg your pardon?
Losing money.
I mean, yeah, holy smokes. It costs anywhere from $25,000 to $55,000 to put an underground parking spot in. It's very expensive.
Yeah.
You know, if you're making $35 a month and half of them are empty, I mean, it's just an unbelievable money loser. So I'm going to put Eric in touch with you, because what he wants to do is he wants to put those containers in the parking spaces.
Oh yeah, you've wanted to do that too.
Yeah.
So he said, Bruce, this is unbelievable. So after the call is over, I'll introduce you to Eric. Like he has lots of buildings with lots of parking spaces. And so here are the economics. He can get between $165 and $185 a month for one of your containers. You know, 7 by 7 by maybe 13.
Yep.
I think that's one of the dimensions that you would produce.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, and I get for a 7 by 7 by 10, I get $165, and 7 by 7 by 13, probably $185 or $195. So what's better, $35 a month or $165 to $185 a month?
Definitely to the 185.
Definitely. And you know, and a lot of the people in his buildings go and rent mini storage, right? So you have to get in your car, drive somewhere to get your snowboard, drive somewhere to put your lawnmower back, drive somewhere to get your skis out, you know, whatever the stuff they're storing there. Imagine if you can get it in the basement, right in your own parking space, which you're not using anyway, or at least the second one you're not using. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a brand new model. The other question that Eric had for you, and I told him I was speaking to you today, so I don't know the answer to the question. The other thing that he asked me is, could these be converted to workshops?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, we have a design that basically would fit at the front of the storage of the parking spot, and it's lifted up in the air so that you can park the front half of your car underneath it. So you can still have storage, and you can park your car. I can even park my truck underneath it because it'll lift up. And if you want to use it as a workbench, you can get the same exact kind of a thing, but you can put a shelf on it, and when you open the door swings up. So the door opens up, you've got space inside that you can work on it. I can send you some information about it.
Well, don't do it just yet. After this call is over, I'll introduce you to Eric Brisson and Dan Dore. These are two young men, you know, in their 30s and 40s that I coach, very smart guys. So send them the information as well as me, okay?
Sure, yep.
So I'm just writing a note so I don't forget. So the other thing that we've been picking up on, Bernadette, is the need for workshops. Even before COVID-19 whacked the planet, the demand for workshop space has been going through the roof. I've been doing this for about 6 or 7 years. So somebody like you might do EFT counseling or training. Somebody like me might be doing coaching, but other people would be doing yoga, registered massage therapy, physiotherapy, energy healing, sweat lodge training, making stuff. I've got an artist in one of my buildings who has a workshop, and she makes furniture out of wood pallets. I mean, you know, there's a winemaker. I've got a lathe operator. I mean, it's incredible. So even before COVID-19 hurt our planet and hurt humanity, workshops and gigpreneurs like your husband and yourself, we're doing this. But then after COVID, it's just been doing that. The demand for these workshop spaces is incredible. So if you could, you know, purpose or repurpose some of your containers for not just storage, but for, you know, as a workshop, or, you know, that would be really, I mean, Eric would be all over that, I think, and he has the capacity to buy quite a bit of this stuff. So this is one of my clients in Kitchener, Waterloo. Yeah, this is the building here. He has an 80,000 square foot building like this. And this is another market for you. You already know about this. Why not fill up an 80,000 square foot building with these containers?
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So another possible model for you, Greg, I think we've talked about this, is you could buy an old beat up industrial building and you could put your containers in there.
Yep.
All right. So this is a young man, another young man I coach. His name is Shadi Fahal, and he owns an 80,000 square foot warehouse in Kitchener-Waterloo. That's in Ontario. And this is what it looks like on the inside. Can you see it okay, Greg?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And the problem he's having is he's got a lot of empty space because it only has 11-foot ceiling heights. And Bernadette, industrial users typically want 18 to 24 feet clear height, right? So, and by the way, Amazon fulfillment centers are now 60 feet. Think about that, Greg, 60 feet. The latest Amazon fulfillment center in Ottawa was built with a 60-foot clear height. And it's not like, you don't have a man on a ladder, you know, going 60 feet up to pick something. I mean, they have these robots that work in 3 dimensions, right? So they can move and go up and down. And Wayfair, if you know Wayfair, is talking about their fulfillment centers now going to 90 feet.
Wow.
So an 11-foot ceiling height is a big, big problem. And Shaddy talked to me about it in the early moments of when I started coaching him. And when you have an 80,000 square foot building empty, that costs quite a bit of money. You still have to pay the property taxes and you have to maintain the building. So what we did was he has been building workshops. You can see these are steel frame workshops that he's building in this building. They range in size from 500 to I think 800 square feet, and he has been renting them like hotcakes. You can just see some of this structure that is going on here. So another possible model, and again, I need you guys to think this through over the next couple of weeks, because you can't do 10 business models, okay, Bernadette? That's 9 too many.
Mm-hmm.
I need you to think about one that hopefully the two of you can work on together. My wife and I are the same. We're on the same page. We work very, very closely together, and we focus together. But you could probably find a crappy old industrial building with 10 or 11 foot ceiling heights that no one else wants. The beautiful thing about these micro workshops, Greg, is that the micro workshop entrepreneur really doesn't care whether it's 10 or 11 feet or it's 16 or 18 feet or 60 feet. I've got one a 20,000 square foot warehouse full of these micro workshops. And, I've got a lathe operator in there. He does prototyping for the tech industry. I've got a woodworker in there. I've got an Irish carpenter in there. I've got the lady who does the furniture out of wood pallets. None of them need more than 10-foot ceiling heights.
Right.
And here's another client of mine. This is in Quebec. He owns this building here. It's a very modest building. It's got a bunch of little apartments in it. His name is Eric Rossman. He's an architect, another former student of mine. You can see it's quite an ordinary looking building. It's like a little multi-res. And I coach him, and when I went to visit the property, he wasn't sure what to do with it because the return on investment was really quite low. And as we were leaving, I had a few animation ideas. Animation is just the word I use, Bernadette, to talk about adding new revenue streams. I asked Eric, what's this? He said, oh, that's just the basement. Said, well, let's go look. So it turns out there's an overhead door to the basement. And then we go in the basement, and this is the picture of the basement. If there's a nuclear war, Greg, we're all going to this building. This thing is built out of concrete and steel. It's indestructible, and it has 10-foot ceiling heights. And I said, Eric, we just found, the little leprechaun with the pot of gold. He's hiding in your basement. And he said, what do you mean? It's just a crappy basement. And I said, no, this is a pot of gold. So I said, if you put some workshops in this basement, I think they will all rent. And sure enough, here are the numbers. I won't go through it in detail, but he put in very small workshops between 200 and 400 square feet, rented them out sort of not very expensive, $300 or $600 in that range. He improved the gross operating income on his building with these 13 workshops in the basement of 60 Carillon in Quebec by $81,000 a year. He netted out about $54,000. He got the building reappraised at 8% using an 8% cap rate, which meant he got a $672,000 increase in the value of this thing. He was able to remortgage it, and within about a year and a half, he was able to take out almost $400,000 in tax-free cash. You understand that process, Greg?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So I think if you could find an old industrial building, that would also be a possibility for you, especially since you're already in the business with these containers.
Right.
All right. Any questions on that? Help me out. I don't want to talk the whole 2 hours.
No, I have no questions on that. I do know there's some opportunities for that particular business model in Calgary because there's some old Lowe's stores, like old smaller version of the home hardware type storage.
Yeah. So I mean, you know, I mean, if you go through the mini contractor yards business, you know, that's fine. If you go for the industrial, you know, storage model, that's fine. And it wouldn't surprise me if you found an old industrial building on a big piece of land where you could do the industrial model that we just talked about, and the RV parking thing that we talked about, and the mini contractor yards.
Okay. Yeah, just gotta find the right space with the right.
Yeah, and you know, if my dad were alive, he would say, "Look, you let 100 deals go by your desk. You don't find the right one, just let them go. Don't get married to any of these deals. But when the right one comes along, then you strike." All right. So you kind of know what to look for. Now I'm going to see if I had a couple other riffs on these models that I wanted to show you. See if I can find it here. Where is it? Yeah, see if I can find it. So all right, so a couple of other, you know, little sort of tweaks on the model. A couple other things that I'm working on with people in this business is, in addition to having, you know, RV parking and all the other stuff that we talked about, and mini contractor yards, maybe if you're lucky enough, an industrial building where you can do the micro workshops. Something else that we've been working on is this model here, where we take a mini storage building. You know what mini storage buildings look like, right? And what we do is we use the mini storage building for car and ATV and motorcycle storage in the wintertime, and we turn it into a flea market in the summertime. That is an active use for a mini storage business that is really, really good. Okay, the cap rate on this is probably north of 20%. This is another model that, you know, I'm not an architect, I'm an engineer, Bernie, so I can't really draw very well. Here's another model of a mini storage building, which is insulated and heated, but no air conditioning. And it's got overhead doors on this side, and it's got man doors or person doors and windows on this side. And you can take these little mini storage units and turn them into like a micro office and a storage space in the back. So very similar to the workshop idea, but these are absolutely tiny. They're like 10 by 20 or 10 by 30. So very, very, very small. And you don't have a bathroom in each one of them. Each building has maybe 2 bathrooms and 1 kitchen that serves the whole building. You with me on that? So there's all kinds of little things you can add to these models that really do make a difference. This is a guy I coach in Calgary who has a 4-acre site that he is turning into a spot where he can park RVs, trucks, buses, loaders, dozers. It is probably the single most profitable thing that you can do with a property. You know, you put down gravel, you put up some fencing, you put up a gate, you know, with a keypad lock, and you're in business. And you notice how he does parking, you know, it's all angle parking. That's the way you do these things, right? So that's another riff. And then this is something else that I wanted to show you, Greg and Bernadette. This is another model where you combine your RV parking with an RV park. I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So if you found a nice piece of property and it was big enough, you would have RV parking, and you might have on part of it an RV park, where you combine the two. Bernadette, you sort of see what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you guys know Parkbridge? Greg, do you know Parkbridge?
No, not offhand, I don't.
Okay. Parkbridge is the largest RV trailer park, mobile home park, cottage park operator in Canada.
Okay.
And they went from having about four locations across Canada and the United States 20 years ago to having, I think, 110 today. That's a lot of growth. And I wanted to show you what their model is. So if you guys were to do something like an RV park and an RV parking lot, and this is storage and this is, you know, fun zone, you would use the Parkbridge model, which is probably one of the most profitable models I've ever seen. So this is Parkbridge. You can just go to their website. You can see this. Bring your RV for the season or visit for a night, a weekend or longer. It's also a cottage park. So you can bring your RV, you can have a cottage, whatever. Let me show you how the model works. So, again, you want to look for an existing location. You do not want to do this from scratch. So there are going to be trailer parks, RV parks, somewhere in Alberta right now that you can buy for not very much money. And you want to make sure that they're big, right? Because if it's you know, like 5 acres, you can't do anything with that. You can't do any of the other stuff we're talking about. You know, the workshop model, the flea market model, you know, the RV parking. I mean, none of that is going to work. So it needs to be big. The one that I just did, I think I told you, I did this for a BC operator, and we bought a site in Ontario, 22.5 acres for $415,000.
Right.
I'm going to show you that, and I'm going to show Bernie too. So you're looking for long days on market. You're looking for an existing campground, trailer park, cottage park, RV park, right? And you're looking for one where the owners are aging out. Like, Greg, how old are you now?
59. I'll be 60 at Christmas.
Oh, 59, you're just a young guy. So, you know, you have another 15 years, or possibly 20 years of active work ahead of you, but that's fine. 59 is fine. And so you want to find something that's, you know, they've been trying to sell for a long time. So you've got a flexible seller. You need a seller take back mortgage, right? So hopefully anywhere from half to 95%. And I'll just explain, I'm going to stop sharing this so you don't actually have to read all that stuff. I'll just explain the model. So this is what Parkbridge does. This is how they went from 3 or 4 locations. Bernadette, am I going too fast, or am I getting most of it through? Okay. You know, it's not easy being green. You know, isn't that what Kermit said?
Yeah.
So what Parkbridge does is they buy existing locations that are really run down and poorly run. That's what you're looking for. You know, like Chris Long bought something that no one else wanted, and now that's going to make him a multi-millionaire. Okay, so when you look at it, everybody else will look at it and say, oh my God, this trailer park is a mess. There's garbage here. Some of these trailers should be scrapped. I mean, it's going to look like heck. That's the one you want, in my opinion.
Right.
So what Parkbridge does, the reason you buy an existing one is if you buy a piece of land, whether it's Alberta or anywhere else in North America, and you have to rezone it, then you have to put roads in, and then you have to put in sewer or septic systems. You have to put in, you know, well water and get that approved. That is a very, very costly and lengthy process. You could buy these much cheaper. And the reason you could buy them cheaper, in my opinion, and you just have to look, Greg, is because people are aging out. And, you know, when you're, say, 85 years of age, and you've got kids who are 55 years of age, and you have grandkids 25 years of age, and they have watched how hard grandpa and grandma have worked to make horrible amounts of, pathetic amounts of money, no kid or grandkid wants that thing. They said, you could not pay me enough money to live in, you know, upper rubber boot, Alberta, and make $15,000 a year like grandma and grandpa did. No way. But you and I know that's because they don't have the right business model. Okay? Parkbridge does. So Parkbridge comes along to, you know, an old dude he's got, you know, 20 acres, he's got 50 acres, he's got 150 acres. The Parkbridge guys, I know them. They put their arm around the old guy and say, hey, you know, I'll help you out. I'll take you out of this for whatever debt you got on the place, plus $2. You know, and I'll pay it over time. Even Parkbridge, they have a lot of money. They're worth a few $1 billion, but still they ask for a seller take back because it helps with your internal rate of return. So even rich dudes ask for seller take back mortgages, not just poor folks like you and me. So what happens next is they take it over and they expand it. So they, you know, they'll put a new road in. They'll have some more RV sites or more cottage park sites or more modular home sites. It costs Parkbridge about $40,000 to put those roads in and services in for each of those lots. Okay? But here's the cool thing is that you cannot bring a modular home, a tiny home, or an RV from somewhere else. You have to buy it from them. And they try and make $40,000 on every RV, tiny home, or trailer home, or cottage park home, or modular home that they sell you. So if you take $40,000 in costs and you take $40,000 in profits, they cancel out. And their model, Bernadette, is that they do not sell you the land, they lease it to you. Do you understand that? So let's say you went out and you bought a piece of property, a piece of land where you're going to put an RV or you're going to put a tiny home or a modular home. You might spend, you know, $80,000 on that piece of land. Parker says, hey, you don't have to spend a dime on the land. We'll rent it to you for $500 a month and we'll provide the services plus the utilities, right? Which they mark up a little bit. So they provide internet, electricity, water, and sewer. But if you figure it out, their adjusted cost base for the marginal adjusted cost base for their lots is zero. Do you understand that, Greg? So their internal rate of return on the expansion of mom and pop's or grandma and grandpa's place, their internal rate of return on the additional spend is infinite.
Yeah.
And that's how they went from 3 or 4 locations to 110, maybe it's 120 now, I don't remember, in 20 years. So you might be able to combine all of the stuff that I'm talking about. You wouldn't do it all at once, but you might be able to, you know, to combine all of your interests, including Bernadette's interests in counseling, into one model. You might.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else? You had some other questions for me. Please do not let me talk the whole 2 hours.
Any other questions?
I was just wondering, like in general, do you have any thoughts about what this whole pandemic and the economic situation is going to look like, I guess, for the real estate market going up the road?
Yes, I do. You know, I have an opinion on everything. I don't know if it's right, but I have one. So the one thing I feel very comfortable about is the model that we've talked about today. And the reason for that is that the evidence shows in the last 6 months that Canadian industrial production, listen to this, is up 20%. We can no longer rely on unreliable trading partners. That includes China and the United States. I don't know if you are aware of this, Bernadette, but in the middle of the pandemic, the President of the United States was talking about stopping exports of personal protective equipment from the United States to Canada. This is atrocious. I'm not a political person. I'm not here to push a political agenda on you guys, that's for sure. But that is atrocious. I can tell you if the reverse happened, there'd be a friggin' war.
Yeah.
We have treaties going back 100 years with the United States in time of war, and this is a war, the pandemic is a war, where if we are short of energy, there is absolute sharing. So let's say we had an energy shortage in Canada and the United States, we have agreements that pledge Canada to supply the United States. So far, if we have a 20% shortage, all of North America will share that. Canada has lots of energy. We're not going to sit on our energy and say, hey, we're good. We have obligations to the United States to come to their aid in these situations. These are treaties. And for the President of the United States to say, well, we don't care about our treaties is really atrocious. And, you know, our Prime Minister, and again, I'm not a political person, I'm not trying to pump up Mr. Trudeau's tires. You know, behind the scenes here in Ottawa, there is an absolute focus now on domestic production, not just for personal protective equipment, but for everything. We cannot rely on the Americans. They've proven that. And we cannot rely on the Chinese either. And so 20% is a big freaking increase. I mean, you know, if you said, Bruce, Greg and I are going to build an office building, I would say to you, Bernadette, why don't you get your money and put it in your wood burning stove and burn it there, because it'll at least produce some heat for you this winter. You could not give me an office building for free today. I would, if I gave you an office building in downtown Calgary for free today, you would hate me. All you would end up doing is losing money. So office buildings are finished, I think, at least for the foreseeable future, and maybe they're going to change forever. And retail is absolutely out of the question. Like, again, if you said, hey, listen, Bruce, we're going to start a dress shop, I would say, there's just, or a shoe store. You know, do you know Zappos.com, Bernadette?
Heard of it.
Zappos is the largest online shoe seller. They probably have 4 or 5 million different types of shoes for men and women, athletic wear, wide feet, narrow feet, high arch, low arch. I mean, they've got an infinite number of, you know, millions of choices. It's another Amazon company. So if you told me, Greg, and you were going to start a shoe store or a dress shop, I would say, you know, you're just going to go broke. So, you know, owning a shopping center or owning an office building would be a disaster. But I am a huge believer in industrial. Let me show you another. This is, do you know where Picton is? Picton, Ontario? Mm-hmm. So Greg, Picton, Ontario is wine country in Ontario. They make pretty good wines.
Okay.
And my oldest daughter, Rachel, got engaged last year to a very nice young man. His name's Patrick Kerr. And so to celebrate their engagement, my wife and I took them to Picton. We stayed in an Airbnb and, you know, went to the beach, you know, and had a little bit of wine, and it was really nice. While I was there, I was just walking around Picton. I ran into 2 of my architecture students. They just recognized me. I didn't recognize them, but they did recognize me. Oh, professor, how are you doing? Oh, you know, who are you? Oh, we were in your class 15 years ago. Don't you remember us? So they're wonderful young architects now at Picton, and they were very warm, and we had good memories together. And they told me about the Picton Air Base. So here, this is another model for you, but it's part of the same model, Greg.
Yeah.
And I said, the Picton Air Base, I didn't even know there was an air base here. Well, it hasn't been used since the end of the Second World War, or some time after that. But they said, you know, because I told them some of the stuff that I'm interested in, they said, you should go visit it. So I did. So the Picton Air Base has, I don't know how many acres it is, but it's like 600 acres. It's huge. And it has all of these workshops on it. They're, you know, and listen to this. These workshops have no running water. They do have power. But if you want to go to the bathroom, you have to put your own porta potty there. And I talked to the owner. He bought the old Picton Air Base for $450,000. It has 41 of these buildings that you see here on the screen on it. And he's renting them out of the 500,000 square feet he has on this site. He's rented, as of August of 2019, he had rented 370,000. He's making $480,000 a month in gross income. You remember he bought this place for $450.
Yeah.
He's making his money back in every 3 weeks. And people, you know, he says, as is, where is. So, you know, this is your building. If the insulation is not up to standard, you fix it, right? You need water, go get a big bottle of water, bring it in. You need to go to the bathroom, you better get yourself a porta potty, brother. So he leases these things he's getting a total of 2.96 million a year on this thing. He bought it from, you know, governments are kind of stupid, right?
Yeah.
Why couldn't the government of Canada do this? They just wanted to get rid of it. It was surplus property. This guy from Toronto says, oh, hey, I'll buy it. You know, for a guy from Toronto, $450,000 is like a Mick Cafe, right? He bought himself a coffee.
Yeah.
It's just pocket change for this guy. But he said to me, he can't believe how much money he's making. But just, Bernadette, to give you the scale of this and why I think this is the direction I think you and Greg should go, because you're already kind of in this space, is this is a town of 7,500 people, and he's leased 370,000 square feet of workshops. Does that blow your mind? And I'll bet you if I check back with him now, every single one of these buildings will be leased, because if you're out of a job, you might as well go do something else, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So here's some more. This one here's Maggie's Gone to Pot. You might think that was like, you know, smoking weed, but she makes beautiful pottery. This guy has he has done like a Halloween thing in here. This guy I met, he has this one here and this one here. I think this one here is an historical museum. He's like a World War II, like, you know, buff, and he's got all kinds of like beautiful stuff from Second World War, you know, the old bombers and the old Spitfires and all that stuff. So you can go in there, you pay a few bucks and you can have a little tour. He does school tours and everything else. And in this one, he's done it up as like a house of horrors that you can take your kids in September, October, right? And you can and he actually does events in there throughout the rest of the year where, you know, if you were having like a corporate sort of bonding thing, even in the middle of summer or some other time other than Halloween, you go in there, it's kind of a funky thing to do. It's been very successful for him. You can see he's smiling. Let's see. Okay, and here's another one that I think I showed you this one, Greg. So this is one of my clients in BC. He's based in Vancouver. He just bought this mini storage place from a power sale. Sorry, so let me see where I can go. Oh, shoot. Oh, here it is. Okay, so it's 22 acres, Bernadette. And it's got this old, it actually used to be a bank. It's got its old bank building here. Again, it's incredible mess. Like this is a picture in the late winter, early part of the spring. There's 2 feet of water in there frozen in the basement. So as soon as I saw this, I said to him, his name's Ruben. I said, Ruben, you're buying this place. He said, oh, look at this, it's a mess. I said, this is what you want. So just to give you a picture of how bad these things are. So it has 56 existing sheds, 22 acres of land. It's serviced, so it's got piped water and sewer. Here's the survey, so you can see it's got 22 acres like this. It's got the old bank building here, if you can sort of see it on the screen. It's got these 2 storage buildings here. It's almost halfway between Montreal and Ottawa, and it's about an hour to the US border. Yeah, so here it is here. It's about an hour to Montreal and about 51 minutes to Ottawa. This is just the street. So this street has municipal water and sewer, and so his site is served, which is fantastic. So what he's going to do with it, and this is just, again, my bad sketching, is he is going to do mini contractor yards, mini storage, the mini storage with workshops, and then he's going to use about 8 acres here right next to the existing home. So these are existing homes on the existing street. He's going to build houses in here because he's got pipe services, and each house will have a workshop. And these are all rentals. All right. So and it's 22 acres. And he paid, initially he paid $450,000 for it, but we found a number of problems with it. So we kept on beating up the bank. It's a power of sale. And we got it down to $412,500, and he closed on it on Friday.
Wow.
22 acres, 56 existing sheds, pipe services, halfway between Montreal and Ottawa, $412,500. That's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And what I told him is that he has to talk now, not to CoverTech, but to you, to Qucik Stor, to get more of these things.
Yeah.
Right? Because this is fantastic. So another model, sorry if I'm overdoing it, but another model, this is another young man I coach in Winnipeg. Did I ever show you this one, Greg?
No.
This is Sean Hebert, and he has a mini storage business, which has been pretty successful, but he had some empty space. So and it was his idea, not mine. I wish I could say it was mine. So he identified a problem, and this is very relevant to you. I think your containers would be fine to store tires in, right?
Yeah.
So he identified a problem that is how many, garages, when they take off your summer tires and put your winter tires on, what are they doing with those tires? Many of them just throw them in the back. And if you take your summer tires and throw them in the back of this building and leave them outside in the wintertime, by the time you come back in the summer to put your summer tires on, those tires will be junk. They will absolutely not be useful. And the same thing is true. If you take your winter tires and store them outside in 30-degree heat, by the time winter comes along, those tires will be melted. So what he did was he started this. You can see Sean here. He started Tire Chalet in Winnipeg, and it has just boomed into a multi-million-dollar business. So what he does now is he'll go to these garages and say, look, I'll pay you to take your tires from you. So digest that for a minute, Bernadette. Greg, do you remember what negative cost storage is? Negative cost selling is?
Yeah.
Mr. 100%, see if you can explain it to Bernie.
Quick version of that.
Negative cost selling, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's going to pay them, but he's going to charge them a certain amount of money to store the tires. But they're actually going to, it's going to be less than what they charge the customer. So it pays them to use his storage.
So let me try it too. Okay, Bernadette. So let's say you were a garage operator, okay? And I come to you and I say, look, what do you do with your tires? Oh, we just throw them in the back. Well, how's that working out for it? Well, our customers are not really happy, right? We've been kind of ruining their summer and winter tires, but that's all we have room for. Well, how about I pay you to take your tires away? What do you mean you're going to pay me to take the tires away and store them properly? Yeah. Here's what we're going to do. You're going to charge your customers $20 a month to store their tires, and you're going to keep $5. So your cost to store tires in my warehouse where I store them properly is a negative $5 a month. You're going to make some money by offering this service to your customers. Does that make sense, Bernie?
The customer pays.
The customer pays pays Tire Chalet $20 a month, and I pay you $5 a month because I got the lead from you.
Oh, okay, okay.
So you're the garage owner. It costs you a negative $5 a month. In other words, you're making $5 just for saying, hey, listen, we don't want to store them in the back here. It's not a good thing for your tires. We work with Tire Chalet. Give them a call because they'll take your tires, and it costs you $20 a month. So they pay Tire Chalet $20 a month, and Tire Chalet. So if you have 2,000 sets of tires, which a lot of these garages do, you can make $10,000 a month and do zero work. That's a lot of money for a garage owner. Greg happens to to distribute Qucik Stor containers. You can put a lot of tires in there. Now, Greg, you cannot store those containers outside, though, in the sun and in the cold. They have to be stored inside.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, so if you had that industrial building, part of it is going to be, in my opinion, would be tire storage, because it is a fabulous model. Do you understand how powerful that negative cost selling can be? So he offered it to all these local garages around Winnipeg, and then he went and tackled crappy tire. And it's true. And he made a pitch to Canadian Tire, and the dealer, the first dealer he happened to know, was so excited he got all the dealers in Winnipeg together and said, "Sean, come and make a presentation to the group." And he did. And one of his first, well, it was probably his first really big contract, was he did all winter and summer tire storage for Canadian Tire in Winnipeg, worth about $1.5 million a year for him. And you know, and they get 1/3 of that, right? Well, no, one quarter of it. So it's an extra, you know, $300,000 or $400,000 for the dealers. And Sean has a process. You know, every set of tires is barcoded and armor-alled and registered and stored in a proper way. You obviously have to be sure that you don't let teenage boys in there, because if they light tires on fire, Greg, how long will they burn for? Yeah, it's a tire fire, right? So you have to have proper security. You obviously have to have proper climate control, but that's just a matter of insulating the building and keeping it at 55 degrees Fahrenheit in the wintertime, and probably 75 or 80 degrees in the summer, but not 90 or 100. And he is expanding it. So again, if you were interested in Tire Chalet, and Longyards, again, I would introduce you to Sean. And he probably is in Calgary already, but whatever. You can certainly, even if you have to do it on your own, that is certainly another model for you. And that model, in terms of getting you out of your job, Bernadette, it's these kinds of things, like Sean had, when I started coaching with him, he had a pharmaceutical job. He was a pharmaceutical salesman for some of the big pharma companies in Manitoba, and he was making $250,000, $260,000 a year. It's hard to leave a job that pays you that much money, but he absolutely did not want to continue to be somebody else's, serf. He just didn't want to be that. But he said, "Bruce, I really," so, and he was making some money with his mini storage business, but not enough to quit. Maybe he made $50,000 a year from that business, but not enough to quit a $250,000 or $260,000 a year job. But Tire Chalet, in the first year, he was making multiples of what he was making at. So I mean, it didn't take him longer than about 6 or 8 months to exit the job. That's the kind of thing that you guys are looking for, I think. Okay, what's next?
Well, Bernie and I spent a fair amount of time talking about, in addition to our personal business for life, we've also been talking about what do we want to do real estate investment wise.
Right.
And we are both very keen on small multifamily.
I saw that. I got a model.
Which was nice. I mean,
yeah, sure, go ahead.
Okay.
No, you keep
going. I was
going.
just gonna say, it's nice that we've had a chance to talk about it a few times now, because we've gone through the pros and cons and what we think where we feel comfortable with it, I guess, is the best way of putting it. So.
Yeah, so let me show you a residential model that I really like, okay? So I did prepare for this, Greg, although you did give me a lot of time.
No, I'm sorry about that.
So I had to cram for my exam. So if I'm not getting 100% today, it's your fault, not mine.
That's right.
But you guys, you have, we have a real estate investment model, the ones that we've been talking about, also that combines with a personal business for life. So the models that we've talked about today so far all sort of hang together with Qucik Stor. You understand, Greg? They're in a way, they're almost all of them related to that.
Yeah.
So the model I'm about to show you has nothing to do with Qucik Stor.
Okay.
All right. This is completely different. So let me show you. Here it is. I bought this building in Belleville. You okay?
I'm just going to pop out for 1 sec.
No,
be
take
with
your
you.
time. I'm gonna wait. We'll shoot the breeze while we're waiting for Bernie.
Okay.
How are sales going with Qucik Stor?
Rentals are up right now. Things are relatively good. I had an idea a week and a half ago. I need to try and talk to a guy this week. There's a guy here who, there's a mini storage development in town here where a guy had developed it as a condo self-storage.
Is that right? How cool is that?
Yeah, I don't know how he ever expected to make any money. It must be totally on the sale of the units because
Probably, yeah.
his condo fees were, $14 a month and stuff like that. He was never going to make money. And it only had 72 doors or 72 spaces to rent. And, half of them were, you could park a semi and a tractor in there, like a tractor and a trailer in there.
Wow.
Yeah, huge empty spaces. And so the developer started building 6 of these. He finished one of them and ended up screwing over a whole bunch of people, a bunch of local trades. So there was the one in town here was in litigation for years and years and years. And the guy who had the mortgage on it finally has that all settled out. So now he's trying to turn this into an operating business so we can sell it. So the week before last, just at the end of the week before last, I thought, well, I'll go to him and I'll offer him for another $200,000. He can buy my rental business, which automatically gives him income. It increases the value of his business by $1 million based on the cap rate alone.
Absolutely.
Plus, I'll run it for him on a project management basis. So I'll take 25% of revenue, which is a bonus for him because he's now got someone who already runs the business. And I don't want to be here forever, so I'll be more than happy to train whoever he sells business to.
That's fantastic, Greg. That's exactly what you wanted to do.
Yeah, it is, and it gets us so that we can then move to another location.
Fantastic. All right, so I'm going to share this model. We're just waiting for you to come back. I strongly support that direction, Greg. So this is me, Bernadette, in Belleville, Ontario. Do you know Belleville?
Heard of it? Yeah.
So Toronto is here, Ottawa's here, Belleville's kind of midway between them. So I bought this building here, you can see it here, about 2 weeks ago. And this is me getting ready to do a building inspection, right? So it's 249 to 253 Front Street, so it's right downtown Belleville. It's got a store here of about 1,100 square feet and another one here, which is quite a bit bigger, which is about, I think, 5,000 square feet. You can sort of see way back here, Greg and Bernadette, kind of like a little bit of an extension. I'll talk about that in a minute. Then it's got 2,700 square feet on the second floor and 2,700 square feet on the third floor. So it's about an 11,000 square foot building on the main street of Belleville. We bought it for $280,500.
Wow.
Oh. Wow.
All right. So if you divide 280,500 by 11,000 square feet, it's about $24 a square foot. Greg, what can you build for $24 a square foot?
You can't even put the gravel down.
You can't build a dog. You cannot build a dog house for $24 a square foot. I know. No, you cannot. A dog house that's 3 feet by 5 feet, so 15 square feet with materials and a little bit of labor, $600. That's $40 a square foot. Yeah. And I built lots of mini storage buildings over the years. I used to be able to build them for $35 a square foot, but today it's $85 a square foot. By the time you put the slab down, you build the damn things, you put the gravel down, do all the building permit stuff. It's $80 to $85 a square foot, uninsulated. So you can't, you definitely can. Now it needs a lot of work, but you know, and if I were to take you inside of it, most people would go inside it and they would run away going screaming, right? Because it's this part, they would. This part over here is the old China Gate restaurant. It's got all the tables and chairs and cutlery and everything just tumbled down, and then you know, it's just junk through the whole. I mean, it's just horrible to look at it. It's the worst, but it's a fantastic buy. By the time we get everything cleaned up, just cleaning it up will double in value. So believe it or not, Greg, on the 3rd floor here, there are 6 existing micro suites. You know I love micro suites.
Yeah.
Do you remember what micro suites are?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's got 6 existing micro suites here, 2 retail spaces here, and we're going to put 3 2-bedroom apartments here. This is the kind of thing, if I were advising you to buy multi-res, I call this model the Samuel model. And the reason that I call it the Samuel model, maybe I have it in here. Let me see if I've got it here. I wonder if I have the very first one we looked at. Maybe I don't have it in here. Anyway, the very, very, very first one that we looked at doing like this was in, oh, here it is. Here it is, guys. Sorry about that. So the very first one of these that we looked at was in Sarnia, another small town in Ontario. And so I call it the Samuel model simply because the first one we looked at is SAMUEL. So Sarnia mixed use model is now called the Samuel model. So this is the model, if you're interested in doing multi-res, this is the model that my wife and I are pursuing with a force. And I've got about another probably 9 or 10 clients across Canada, the United States, doing the same thing. So you go into towns and you go onto their main streets and you find all of these wonderful buildings that are available that nobody wants, okay? And nobody wants them because most of these main streets, if you were to talk to a planner in a small town, and whether it's Alberta or North Dakota or whatever, most of the planners would say, or the politicians, the local councillor, the local mayor would say, oh, well, we really want to have, you know, the hardware store back. Well, with Home Depot up the road and Lowe's on the other side, there's no hardware store that's going to go into any of these buildings. You with me on that? They would go broke. And they say, well, we want the general store. Same thing. You know, a general store is going to compete against Walmart? I don't think so. Or we want a dress shop. For all the reasons we talked about a few minutes ago, not going to work. Oh, we need another shoe store again. So this is, again, my client, Shadi Fahal from Kitchener-Waterloo. This was the very first one we did. So it's called the Samuel model. So what he did here is he converted these not to sort of retail, but to professional spaces. All right. So a dentist, a physiotherapy, a registered massage therapist, you know, a chiropractor, anybody who's internet resistant. So until the internet could drill your teeth, Bernadette, we still need to go to visit the dentist. So the things that will make sense here will be, you know, a cafe, because people still like going to a cafe and getting some nice sandwiches and coffee, or a professional office. Could be a law office, an accounting office, okay? So these 2 spaces will be repurposed for that kind of use. And then you notice over here, all around here, you've got tons and tons of windows back here, all around. Can you sort of see all around the base of the building? These retail spaces absolutely could not rent because they're too big. Nobody needs a 5,000 square foot, you know, registered massage therapist office. You don't. 1,000 is plenty. So we're going to produce, Shadi and I'm coaching him, is going to produce, you know, a cafe with 800 or 1,000 square feet, a professional office, 800 or 1,000 square feet, which will leave here a lot of space in the back. He's going to turn those into workshops with their own entrance. Okay, you guys following that? So, I mean, this is a mixed use model. And upstairs here, he's going to put in about 12 micro suites. So these are like little studio apartments. So this particular building will have two, quote, retail spaces, which are not really retail, the professional spaces. We'll have probably 6 maker spaces or workshops around the base and 10 or 12 micro suites. In addition to that, he's got plenty of room here. He's going to put some playland there. So Bernadette, what do I mean by playland? People who play together, families who play together, stay together. And you know, certainly if I were doing an RV park, a big part of the park is having places for people to play pickleball, to play beach volleyball, to play bocce, you know, to do things. If you know, even in industrial parks, I put in playlands. Because, you know, people like to drink beer after work on a Friday, and then they play beach volleyball, they play pickleball. So whether it's an industrial use, a shopping center, or something like this model, if you add a food truck and some you know, outdoor ping pong or something like that, people love that stuff. And people who play together stay together. So your tenants will stay longer and pay more rent because of that. All right. So this was the very first one that we did. And then I'll give you another example. There's another one. So this one here is a building a client of mine bought. He put in a hairdresser here. I think it's Susie hairdresser here, and a little tiny cafe. It's only seats 19 people, called Edgar Cafe. And the woman who leases it, is such a fantastic, she makes such wonderful food and beverages that even in the middle of February, there's a lineup out the door. And Ottawa's very cold in February. And of course, she has her patio here and a little bit of extra space here. It's incredible. From this little place here, she does $650,000 a year in volume. Think about that. And then it's got the apartments upstairs. The other thing that we're doing starting this year is we're following Edmonton's example. When we do things like this, when we're opening patios, we are going to open them throughout the winter. We're going to put, Edmonton is doing this through, I mean, you probably know this. Edmonton has made up its mind they're going to try and have some of their downtown streets open year round with lots of heaters. And the one thing that we're using as well in Ottawa to allow this to happen in other cold weather cities like that is we're planting dwarf evergreens all around these patios, because the only windproofing that works are trees. It's not, you know, putting boards up, it's putting trees up. If you guys remember, even in the coldest winter in Alberta, if you go snowshoeing and the wind is blowing, you go 5 or 6 feet, 2 meters into the forest, the wind drops to 0 and you're warm within 15 minutes. Are you following me so far, guys? All right, so let me go back to my, and here's the micro suite. So this is a typical micro suite, Bernadette. They range in size from as small as 200 square feet to as large as 400 square feet. And this is all the rage, is the single hottest product in real estate, even before COVID hit, but now especially. So you don't want a roommate. If your roommate works in the emerge department, you know, where they're dealing with COVID, and comes home and she's your roommate or he's your roommate, you don't really want that roommate. So micro suites, it's your space. So you come in here, you've got a little sleeping area, you've got a bathroom area, you've got a little kitchen, it's not much, but you can make meals here. You've got a work area and entertainment here, and you've got some access to the outside. It's a fantastic product. And in terms of the playland, now you can see some images. We do outdoor ping pong, we do bocce. This is the, this is the big NFL game called cornhole, basically beanbag toss. And we love food trucks. Everybody seems to love food trucks. And it's not just burgers and fries now. You can get pizza, you can get shawarma, you can get Indian food. I mean, it's incredible. Yeah. And so we combine, if you think about what Shaddy's doing in Sarnia, you know, the micro suites, the professional space, and the maker spaces. Again, that is where the market is going. People no longer, Bernadette, want to get up in the morning, get in their car, drive an hour through traffic, go to a horrible office building with bad air, windows that don't open. And today, of course, you can get sick, and then take another hour to go back home. They want to live, work, and play, learn, create, make in the same spot. So if I were going for a multi-res, this is what I would do. And I would want you guys to find another one that I just bought, just like I bought in Belleville. Imagine buying an 11,000 square foot building for 280 grand.
Wow.
Okay. Here's another one. This was done by another young client of mine in Prescott, which is a very tiny town. He bought this building here. He rented this one here with for a cafe. And we got permission from the town of Prescott to put a patio here, and he is going to winterize it with the dwarf evergreens and the heaters, going to go year round. The other one is not yet rented, and he's got 3 apartments here. Okay. To give you the economics of this, he bought this one for $148,000 on the main street, 148 King Street, Prescott. He put in about $200,000 of renovation, so he was at about $348,000. Even though we have one unit's not rented, he got it reappraised for $550 and took out about $70,000 of cash tax-free. That's the model. Greg, you understand the model?
Yeah.
So once you've done one, you'll start to, you could do 10. You with me on this so far? So we're back here to my model. All right, so here's the picture of the building. I won't go through this. This is way too complicated. Let's see if there's any other. So I bought this property out of a power sale. And I had 24 hours to buy it because I went there on, I think, on a Sunday. And on the Tuesday, Toronto investors were coming to look at this building. It would not have been on the market 48 hours later. So I had to go and inspect it, put in an offer, and waive my conditions in 36 hours.
Wow.
Right? So you got to be ready to act. Now, this is downtown Belleville. The cool thing about downtown Belleville is other people have the same idea. It's not that I'm a genius, I'm not. Other people, you can see the renovations that are going on near this building. So when this building is renovated and completed, we think it'll be worth between $3.5 and $4 million. Do the math. Okay? This is a better model than going and buying a house in Calgary, trying to rent it out, and maybe you make a 4% return on investment.
Yes.
Am I winning any friends here?
Okay. Yep.
The Memorial Arena, I would have bought this arena too. It was for sale, but by the time I got there, it had just been sold because we were going to repurpose this. Guess what we were going to use this thing for? You only get one guess.
Makerspace.
Absolutely. We were going to turn half of it into a food court and the other half into it's an arena. The other half would be maker spaces. Imagine the combination, right? But we were too late. All right. I think that's about it. I probably overdid it on the business models, but I want you to think about this residential model too, because it's really a mixed use model. It's kind of commercial and residential. But, you know, to me, think about all the small towns, and you guys are aware of the fact that people are leaving the cities by the hundreds of thousands right now as we speak. You guys are aware of that, right?
Yeah.
So 40% of the rich dudes have left Manhattan. 40% of wealthy people in Manhattan have left, because if you live on the 65th floor of a condo tower overlooking Central Park and you need to get a liter of milk and you have to go down 65 floors, you're going to get sick just on the way down.
Yeah.
And you can't walk a 64 flights, at least I can't walk up 64 or 65 flights. It's too far. You can't walk. You have to take the elevators. So, and it's not just New York City. People are leaving Toronto because they can work remotely now. So I've been predicting for a while that folks would rediscover small towns. And as I said in Belleville, had we been 24 hours later, we would have bought that building. It would have been gone. So I'm a big believer in this model and putting my money and time into it.
People are moving out of the bigger cities and going back to the suburbs kind of thing. But
Well,
small town,
I
as
think
opposed to a
I think
area.
small towns, because you can sell in Toronto, you know, do you know what a townhouse in downtown Toronto costs?
No.
$1.7 million for a 4-bedroom townhouse.
Wow.
1.7 million for a 4-bedroom townhouse. So you sell your $1.7 million townhouse in Toronto, and you could buy a beautiful, beautiful home for $400,000 in Belleville.
Yeah.
And it's much safer. I mean, there are 0 COVID-19 cases in Belleville, 0.
Right.
So I do think that between all the stuff that we've discussed today, you'll find something. But Bernadette, you and Greg have to really try and digest all of this and put it into something that isn't just a bowl of spaghetti. It has to be clear in your mind and also your coach's mind too, as to what it is you're going to do.
Right. Yeah. So we'll spend some time going over the video of this and discussing it some more and pick a business model we want to work on.
Yeah, you need a business model, and we're not going to run off. But once you have decided what you want to focus on for the next decade, that's it. You've got to make it work. Because, you know, if you were 39 and you screw up, you have enough runway to unscrew up. But at 59, you do not. So whatever decisions you and Bernie make now these are the most important decisions you're going to make for the rest of your life. And that's why I'm here. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'll download this video to my computer. I will upload it to YouTube, unlist it. I'll send you the link. And Bernadette, what I'd really like from you and from Greg is hopefully a more detailed agenda for the next session, right? So if you don't mind, keep either your smartphone or a pad of paper next to your bed. You wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, oh, we really ought to ask Bruce that question. Write it down or put it in your smartphone. And send me a really detailed agenda. So these are sessions that I do for you. And every session is different. Like I have a couple of billionaire clients that I coach. Their needs are very different from, say, a former student who's buying his or her first investment property. And your needs are very different from everybody else's. So that agenda is really important to me. And the other thing I would really like you guys to do is I'd like you to do a mid-month report. So, you know, so in the next couple of weeks, you'll have digested what we've done here, and you will send me a detailed report of your thinking, where you're going, what are the issues, etc. So that's different from the agenda. So a mid-month report is coming in the next 2 weeks. Your agenda will come about a week later, and we'll do another coaching session. If you find a property that you're interested in for the Samuel model or for any of the other models, please do not buy it without including your coach. So, you know, otherwise you're paying for coaching you don't really need. And Bernie, what I ask people to do is put Zoom on their phone. So if you find a property, oh, this might be a Samuel model, or this might be an industrial building we could buy super cheap and do this cool thing that Bruce talked about, or this might be an RV park that we could do something with, or RV parking. I can, you know, I don't have a lot of time, but I could spend 15 or 20 minutes with you walking through these properties or seeing them with you without having to come out to Alberta or wherever you are.
Right.
And when you were out for a moment, Bernadette, Greg told me that he's in a situation now, or might be in a situation where he has more geographic flexibility if he sells his rental business. So you don't have to be confined. You know, you could be like my BC client who runs a company called Extra Storage, who's got Extra Storage Wyoming, Extra Storage Sarnia, Extra Storage now Champlain. You know, you don't have to be confined to you know, the existing location. The crucial thing is include me in the loop, all right, by email or by text. And then when you find something, we'll walk through it together. And I record those sessions too, because I can suggest all kinds of animation ideas, and you'll have a recording of it too. So that'll help you as well. The last thing I would say is, I think, Greg, I did send you, as part of your coaching, you get to do that real estate course. Did I send you the first 3 webinars?
Yes, and I tried to click on the webinar the other night, and it wouldn't open last night.
Well, I will resend it. So Bernadette, I recorded a 6-month course called the Ninja All-Star Real Estate Investment Course. It's very, very, it's quite long, it's 6 months. but I'd really like you at least to look at some of them. And Greg, I would like you, you know, Mr. 100%, I'd like you to do that course because it will train you. You will become among the top best investors and real estate people in the world. It is that good a course. All right. So I'll make sure that you get it again. All right.
Great.
I mean, it's free. You might as well do it. But you will be a very well trained real estate investor, a professional.
Perfect.
And there is an exam at the end of that too. Guys, I gotta go.
As a former prof, I love exams.
There you go. You're amazing. See you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce.